The courtroom froze the moment he raised that badge, and within minutes, Judge Judy shattered the arrogance he had carried his entire life. No whisper, no movement, just the suffocating silence that felt heavy enough to crack the walls of courtroom 4B. Moments earlier, he entered with the confidence of someone who believed consequences were for ordinary people. But in Judge Judy's courtroom, ordinary and privileged stand on the same line, and that realization was about to detonate like a grenade at his feet. His name was Adrian Colt, 23 years old, son of a 4-star general whose reputation stretched across continents. A young man who had grown up watching doors open automatically, not because of his character, but because of his last name. And today would be the first time in his life that a door didn't open. It slammed shut. Thursday, April 14th, 9:40 a.m. Providence Municipal Courthouse. The bailiff called out, State of Rhode Island versus Adrian Marcus Colt. The doors pushed open, and Adrian walked in like a celebrity making a grand entrance. His jacket, military style, decorated with patches and insignias he had never earned, hung perfectly off his shoulders. Around his neck, his father's dog tags rested like an expensive accessory, and in his hand, lightly dangling between 2 fingers, was a leather badge holder that didn't belong to him. He moved with swagger, not confidence, not pride, but entitlement, the gallery murmured. The prosecutors stiffened. Even the court reporter looked up over her glasses, sensing trouble long before the first word was spoken. Judge Judy Shinlin sat motionless, reading from the thick file in front of her. A file that shouldn't have been this thick for someone his age. She looked up slowly, not impressed, not surprised, not amused, just aware. Good morning, Mr. Colt. Adrian didn't straighten. He didn't take off his sunglasses. He didn't acknowledge the authority in front of him. He simply muttered, Yeah, a single syllable, flat, disrespectful, and dripping with the kind of casual arrogance only inherited privilege could produce. Judge Judy didn't respond. Not yet. She had seen dozens like him, but few who carried entitlement with such unshakable confidence. She simply folded her hands and waited. The bailiff began reading the charges. Asterisk. The courtroom fell silent as the list unfolded like a scroll of bad decisions. Reckless driving 94 miles per hour in a 35 miles per hour residential zone. Evading military police near a protected base area. Unauthorized use of military identification. Impersonating a commissioned officer. Threatening a federal officer with career retaliation. Obstruction of military security operations. It was more than a list. It was a portrait. A portrait of someone who had never heard the word stop. Adrian stood still as the charges echoed across the courtroom. He rolled his shoulders once, like the entire situation bored him. He flicked some invisible dust off his jacket sleeve. Judge Judy lifted her eyes again. Mr. Colt, do you understand these charges? He shrugged lazily. People are blowing it out of proportion, Your Honor. I was late for something important. Some MP thought he could give me attitude. That's all. Judge Judy's eyebrow lifted by exactly 1 millimeter, a sign anyone familiar with her courtroom knew was a warning. Not a gesture. Remove your sunglasses. He sighed dramatically, as if being asked to take off his shades was an Olympic-level sacrifice. He hooked them on his collar and looked up. The arrogance in his eyes told the whole story. Asterisk. Judge Judy reopened the file. Mr. Colt, this is not your first incident near a military installation. The courtroom leaned in. 8 months ago, she continued. You parked in a restricted zone at Fort Hallman. When asked to move, you told security personnel, and I quote, my father outranks everyone here, so I park wherever I want. Is that accurate? Adrian smirked. It was a misunderstanding. Judge Judy turned another page. And 3 months ago, you attempted to use your father's credentials to gain entry to a restricted military event. When denied, you informed the officer that your last name opens doors that his rank never will. Adrian stiffened slightly, but the confidence remained. My father's service matters. Your Honor, that should count for something. Judge Judy closed the file. Snap. Like a trap sealing shut. Your father's service does matter. Mr. Colt, But what does not matter here is your belief that his achievements are a set of keys for you to open any door you wish. Her voice turned colder. In this courtroom, your last name is irrelevant. For the first time, Adrian's jaw tightened, just a fraction. But Judge Judy noticed everything. Asterisk, the prosecutor stood. Your Honor, the state would like to introduce body camera footage from military police officer Jenna Alvarez, recorded on April 6th at approximately 11:18 p.m. Judge Judy nodded. Proceed. The screens blinked on. A dark road appeared. A black vehicle swerved into view, barreling at dangerous speed. Sirens wailed behind it. Adrian leaned back in his chair. Unfazed. The footage switched to Officer Alvarez approaching the driver's window. License. Registration, military identification, please. Adrian's response came instantly. I don't need ID. I'm family. It's better than military. The courtroom gasped. But then it happened. He lifted the badge. Slowly, deliberately, like a weapon. See this? He said on the footage. That's my father's. It's practically mine. So let's not waste time. The gallery froze. The badge gleamed under the police flashlight. It was the moment the courtroom atmosphere shifted. The moment the arrogance crossed the line into something darker. Judge Judy watched silently, her expression unreadable. The footage continued, showing Adrian threatening Officer Alvarez's career. One phone call from my father and you'll be reassigned to the Canadian border counting trucks. For the next 5 years, the room fell into a suffocating silence. Judge Judy finally spoke. Mr. Colt, do you have anything to say before we continue? For the first time, a flicker, just a flicker of uncertainty flashed in Adrian's eyes. Asterisk. The courtroom doors slammed shut behind the officers as they escorted Mark out, leaving a thick, stunned silence behind. Judge Judy leaned back in her chair, exhaling deeply, not out of exhaustion, but out of the firm satisfaction that justice, for once, had landed exactly where it needed to. Linda, sitting alone now, clutched her handbag with trembling fingers. Her knuckles had turned pale, and her heartbeat echoed louder in her ears than anything else in the room. Mark's absence felt like a wound, raw, immediate, impossible to ignore, even though she had spent years silently enduring his entitlement, his temper, and his inflated ego. Judge Judy tapped the bench lightly. Bailiff, bring Ms. Linda forward. Linda rose slowly, her legs barely steady enough to carry her. She approached the witness stand, brushing away a tear before it had the chance to fall. Sit, Judge Judy instructed, not harshly, but with an unexpected softness. Linda obeyed. Judge Judy folded her hands. You've been quiet all morning. Too quiet. And that tells me there's more to this story than what your son claimed. Linda lowered her gaze. For years, she had carried guilt like a backpack filled with stones. Guilt for enabling Mark. Guilt for protecting him. Guilt for mistaking silence for love. And now, here she was, sitting in front of a judge who could see right through her. Ms. Linda, Judge Judy continued, your son wasn't born entitled. He was raised into entitlement. And that usually means a parent has been carrying a burden alone. Linda's throat tightened. Her fingers clutched the edges of the chair. Judge Judy pressed. Tell me what really happened. Asterisk. Linda swallowed hard. The courtroom watched her with aching anticipation. It started years ago, she finally whispered. When his father, the general, left us. There it was, a truth heavy enough to bend steel. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. He left completely? Linda nodded. He loved the uniform more than the family. He believed discipline was the only way to shape a child. And when Mark didn't meet his unrealistic standards, he pushed him harder. Harder than any child should be pushed. Her voice broke. Judge Judy remained still, listening with an intensity that made Linda's heart race. One day, Linda continued, Mark found his father's badge in an old box in the attic. He was only 15, and when he held it, it was the first time I'd seen him smile in months. He thought if he carried that badge, maybe his father would come back. A soft gasp echoed from the audience. Judge Judy didn't react. Her expression stayed steady, thoughtful but firm. So you let him keep it? She asked. Linda nodded again. tears slipping down her cheeks. He didn't have his father. He didn't have direction. And I was too afraid of losing him too. Judge Judy straightened her robe. Fear, she said calmly, is a terrible substitute for parenting. Linda flinched, not because Judy was wrong, but because she was painfully right. But, Judy continued, her tone shifting, fear doesn't make you a bad mother. It makes you a human being who is abandoned and overwhelmed. Linda looked up surprised. Judge Judy leaned in. What makes you responsible is what you choose to do next. The courtroom doors opened again. Mark was brought back in, cuffs still on his wrists, but his posture had completely changed. His shoulders sagged. His eyes avoided the crowd. He looked like someone whose entire life had been peeled open in front of strangers. He was seated beside his mother. Judge Judy looked at both of them. This is no longer just about a misused badge, she said. This is about accountability for both of you. Mark's jaw clenched. But the anger he usually hid behind wasn't there. Only fear, asterisk. Judge Judy continued. You, she said, pointing at Mark, will face your legal consequences. Pretending to be an officer is not a small mistake. It's a serious crime. Mark lowered his head. And you, she said to Linda, are going to stop apologizing for things that were never your fault. Your son didn't need a badge. He needed boundaries. And it's not too late to start giving him those. Linda wiped her cheeks. Judge Judy leaned back. This case isn't over. Not by a long shot. But before we continue, both of you are going to do something very difficult. Mark looked up tense. Linda straightened, unsure. You, Judy said to Mark, will apologize to the court sincerely for your behavior. He hesitated. Then, in a voice stripped of pride, I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. Judge Judy nodded once. And you, Miss Linda, she said softly, will forgive yourself. Linda couldn't hold back anymore. Tears flowed freely, not from pain, but from the release of years of self-blame. Judge Judy let a moment of silence fill the room. Very well, she said finally. We proceed. She slammed the gavel bang. Asterisk, the echo of the gavel seemed to hang in the courtroom air long after it struck. Mark felt the vibration of that single sound ripple straight through his chest. To him, it didn't feel like the end of a hearing. It felt like the end of the version of himself he'd been pretending to be for years. Judge Judy shuffled a stack of documents, her expression unreadable. Her silence was louder than any scolding. Bailiff, she finally said, bring in the evidence. The audience leaned forward as the bailiff returned carrying a sealed brown envelope. He placed it on the bench with careful precision, as though whatever it contained was as heavy as the truth it would reveal. Judy slid the contents out, photographs, reports, and something that instantly made Mark's breath hitch, a disciplinary report bearing his father's full title, General Arthur Halle. His father, his absence, his shadow. Mark's fist tightened. Judge Judy's eyes flicked toward him. Recognize this? He didn't speak. Couldn't. Linda did. Oh God. Judy, please. Silence. The judge cut sharply. Not cruel, but necessary. This is a courtroom, not a therapy session. She lifted one of the papers. This, she announced, is a detailed record of the general's misconduct, the real reason he left your family. Mark's head snapped up. Linda froze. The entire courtroom felt like it inhaled at the same time. Judge Judy continued. Your father was removed from his position, Mr. Hall, not because of injury, not because of transfer, but because of repeated violations of protocol and abuse of command. Mark's face went pale. Half the room gasped. Linda swallowed, her lips trembling. She had spent years hiding this truth from her son, hoping it would spare him from the heartbreak. Judy wasn't done, and yet, she said, leaning forward, you built your entire identity around a badge belonging to a man who couldn't even protect his own honor. Mark's nostrils flared. I didn't know, he whispered, the words strangled. No, Judy replied. You didn't want to know. His jaw trembled. Linda finally spoke, her voice cracking. I didn't tell him. I thought I was protecting him. Judge Judy cut her a look, sharp, but not cruel. You protected a lie, she said calmly. And lies always grow teeth. Asterisk Mark leaned back in his chair like his spine had suddenly forgotten how to support him. All the bravado, all the arrogance, all the entitlement. Gone. Stripped away by a sheet of paper. His father wasn't a hero. He wasn't a man to admire. He wasn't someone whose badge should be worn like a crown. Mark's entire life had been built on a foundation of dust. Judge Judy tapped the report. This badge, she said, lifting the photograph of it, symbolizes service, sacrifice, and integrity. You used it for attention. You used it to intimidate. You used it to pretend you were someone you weren't, because you couldn't handle being who you are. Her words didn't slap, they carved. Mark's voice cracked. I just wanted him to be proud of me. Linda covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. Judge Judy didn't soften. The man who abandoned you does not get a vote in who you become. Mark blinked hard, fighting a storm inside him. Asterisk suddenly. The courtroom door swung open. A man in uniform stepped inside. Gasps rippled through the room. Not the general, but his former command sergeant, a weathered man in his late 50s with a chest full of medals and a posture forged from decades of service. Mark stiffened. Linda's eyes widened. Judge Judy eyed him calmly. Sergeant Cole, she said, you made it. Yes, Your Honor, he replied, before turning toward Mark. I'm here for him. The room buzzed. Mark pointed weakly at himself. For me. Cole nodded with a heavy sigh. I served under your father. I saw the good in him, and the worst. You deserve the truth he never gave you. Mark swallowed hard. Cole stepped forward. Your father wasn't a bad man, he said. But he was a broken one. And he took his frustration out on anything that reminded him of his own failures, including you. Mark's eyes welled up. Linda cried softly, her shoulders shaking. Cole continued, voice firm yet gentle. The badge you wore wasn't a symbol of who he was. It was a symbol of who he should have been. Judge Judy nodded slowly, which is why what happens next matters. Asterisk Judy folded her arms, turning her focus solely on Mark. You stand charged with impersonating an officer, threatening a civilian, obstructing a security checkpoint, and disrupting a federal facility. Mark dropped his gaze. These are not small charges, Judy continued. And I have every legal right to recommend jail time. Linda's breath caught in her throat. Mark closed his eyes, bracing for the worst, but Judy wasn't finished. However, she said, voice steady, what I see is not a criminal. I see a young man who has spent his entire life chasing a ghost. A young man raised on an illusion. A young man desperate for validation from someone who couldn't give it. Mark opened his eyes, tears pooling. Linda's trembling eased slightly. Sergeant Cole watched, arms crossed, hopeful. Judge Judy's tone sharpened. You need consequences, but you also need direction. She leaned forward. So here's what I'm considering. A rehabilitation program supervised by the military discipline unit under Sergeant Cole. Gasps filled the room. Mark's breath hitched. What does that mean? It means, Judy said firmly, you will learn what real honor looks like. Real structure. Real responsibility. She added, and if you complete it successfully, the court will consider reducing your charges. Linda broke down in relieved sobs. Mark stared at Judy like he'd been handed a lifeline he didn't think he deserved. Sergeant Cole nodded. I'll take him, Your Honor. Judy smirked. Of course you will. Someone has to turn him into a man his mother can be proud of. Mark finally looked at his mother, really looked, and in her tear-filled eyes, he saw something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. Judge Judy lifted her gavel. We continue tomorrow. Court is adjourned. Bang. Lights, gasps, chairs scraping. Emotions overflowing. Asterisk the courtroom emptied slowly, but the weight of everything said inside those walls clung to Mark like a second skin. He sat motionless, staring at the bench where Judge Judy had stood moments ago, the woman who had peeled apart his lies, dismantled his pride, and exposed his truth with surgical precision. Sergeant Cole approached him, his boots heavy but his voice steady. You coming, kid? Mark didn't move. Linda hovered beside her son, afraid to touch him, afraid not to. Mark, she whispered, But he still didn't respond. It wasn't defiance. It was the sudden collapse of a world he'd built his entire life around. A world held together with illusions. An old badge and a father's shadow. Asterisk. The hallway outside the courtroom stretched long and sterile, buzzing faintly with fluorescent lights. As they walked, Mark felt every footstep echo inside him. Sergeant Cole led the way. Linda followed, her fingers nervously twisting the strap of her bag. Mark walked between them like someone trying to catch his breath underwater. At the end of the hallway, Cole stopped and turned around. Sit, he ordered gently. Mark sank onto a bench. Linda sat beside him, but he didn't look at her. Not yet. Cole remained standing, arms crossed. You know, he said, your father wasn't always the man you remember. Mark flinched. Cole continued anyway. He used to be one of the most respected men in the unit. Disciplined, focused, loyal, but life breaks people differently. Mark finally looked up. His voice was small. Then why did he break me? Linda covered her mouth as a sob escaped her. Cole let out a slow breath. Because you were the thing he loved the most, and the thing that reminded him the most of his failures. Mark's throat tightened. Why didn't he tell me he lost his rank? Because pride kills honesty, Cole answered. And your father had too much of it for his own good? Mark ran a hand through his hair, eyes burning. I spent years wanting his approval. Years trying to act like him. Years pretending his badge meant something. Cole crouched in front of him, voice lowering. The badge did mean something. It just didn't mean what you thought. Mark swallowed. It meant nothing. Just like I meant nothing to him. Cole's tone sharpened. Don't you ever say that again. Mark jerked slightly at the sudden force of the words. You mattered, Cole said firmly. You mattered so much he couldn't face you after he fell. He couldn't stand being your hero one day and your disappointment the next. That's not an excuse, Mark whispered. No, Cole said. But it's the truth. Linda reached slowly for her son's hand. This time, he didn't pull away. Asterisk, I should have told you, she said, her voice breaking with guilt. I should have told you everything. I thought I was protecting you, but all I did was build a glass cage around your heart. Mark stared at her, not angry. Not forgiving, just processing. I didn't want you to hate him, Linda whispered. I didn't want you to feel abandoned. I already felt abandoned, Mark murmured. Just for different reasons? Linda's tears fell freely. And for the first time in years, Mark saw his mother not as the quiet, fearful woman in the background of his life, but as someone who had been fighting silent battles he never acknowledged. Mark squeezed her hand weakly. I'm sorry, he whispered. For everything. For how I acted. For how I treated people. For not seeing you. Linda broke and wrapped her arms around him. This time, he didn't stiffen. He didn't pull away. He let himself feel it. The warmth. The loss. The grief. The healing. Asterisk. But then the weight of everything hit him all at once. The truth. The shame. The consequences. And it was too much. Mark pushed forward. Elbows on his knees, and finally broke. I don't know who I am now, he cried. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix any of this. Sergeant Cole straightened. That's why you're going into the program. Mark looked up through blurred eyes. Cole continued. It's not punishment. It's a reset. A fresh start. A chance to build your own identity, not your father's. Mark let out a shaky breath. And what if I fail? Cole smirked slightly. Then you get up and do it again. That's how real discipline works. Mark wiped his face. And what if I can't handle it? Then I'll be there to make sure you can. Something shifted in Mark's expression, not hope, but the early glimmer of it. Asterisk. Cole reached into his pocket and handed Mark a folded piece of paper. What's this? Mark asked. It's from your father, Cole said. Written before he died. Linda gasped. What? He wrote something? Cole nodded. He asked me to give it to Mark one day, when he was ready to face the truth. And today, you finally are. Mark stared at the letter like it was a grenade that could explode at any second. His hands trembled as he unfolded it. Linda held his shoulder gently. Cole stood silently, giving him space. Mark read the first line, and his breath stopped. Son, if you're reading this, it means I was too much of a coward to face you while alive. Tears blurred the ink. He kept reading. I wanted you to see me as a hero. But I wasn't one, not anymore. I lost myself. I lost my honor. And I lost you. Mark swallowed, chest tightening painfully. You deserved a better father. Not a man hiding behind medals or badges. A real man. One who could teach you how to live with integrity. The next line broke him. I failed you. But I pray you never fail yourself. Mark pressed the letter to his face, sobbing silently. Linda broke into fresh tears, holding her son as he trembled in her arms. Cole rested a hand on Mark's shoulder. He loved you, in his own broken way, but he loved you. Mark whispered through tears. I didn't want him to love me. I wanted him to be there. Linda hugged him tighter. I know, baby, she said softly. I know. Minutes passed before Mark finally lifted his head, eyes red but resolute. What do I need to do? He asked Cole. Show up, Cole answered. Work hard, listen, learn humility. Learn discipline. Learn who you are, not who you pretended to be. Mark nodded slowly. I'll do it, he said. Whatever it takes. I'll do it. Linda wiped his tears gently. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Mark leaned into her hand. I want to be someone you can be proud of. You already are, she said. He didn't believe it yet, but he wanted to. The next morning. The courtroom filled again. The tension was thicker. The stakes were higher. The consequences were closer. Judge Judy entered. Eyes sharp as ever. She looked directly at Mark. No fear, no anger, no arrogance, just a young man standing at the edge of a new beginning. She lifted her gavel. Let's finish what we started. Bang, the gavel's echo faded, and the courtroom fell into a heavy silence. Judge Judy scanned the room. Every eye focused on her, but her attention, locked on only one person. Mark gone was the arrogant young man who strutted in with a stolen badge. Standing before her now was someone stripped of illusions, forced to confront the truth, and finally willing to change. Mr. Halle, she began, her voice steady yet sharp enough to cut through bone. You have had 24 hours to reflect on your actions. I hope, for your sake, they were 24 hours well spent. Mark swallowed hard. Yes, Your Honor. Judy motioned him forward. He stepped to the front. Hands clasped, shoulders lowered, eyes sincere for the first time in his life. Linda watched from the seat behind him, fingers intertwined and trembling with hope. Sergeant Cole stood at her side like a silent pillar, arms crossed, jaw firm, ready to take the young man under his wing. Judge Judy lifted a file. Your charges, she said, are severe. Impersonating an officer, threatening civilians, abusing a symbol you didn't earn. She paused. Most people who do what you did end up in jail. Gasps whispered through the courtroom. Mark didn't flinch. He expected this. He accepted it. Judy continued. But most people who do what you did haven't spent the last day confronting a lifetime of lies. She lifted her eyes to him. That is what makes your case different? Mr. Halle, she said. Step closer. He did. Look at me. He met her gaze, scared but steady. Judy leaned forward. What is the badge to you now? Mark took a breath. It's not power. It's not pride. It's not a shortcut. He exhaled shakily. It's a responsibility. One I never earned and never understood. It represents the people who serve, people who give up more than I ever had the courage to. Judy's gaze didn't soften, but something behind her eyes flickered approval. Maybe. And what? She asked. Have you learned about yourself? Mark looked at the floor for a moment, then back up. But I've been pretending, he said. Pretending to be strong. Pretending to be important. Pretending that carrying my father's badge made me someone worthy. His voice tightened. But I don't want to pretend anymore. Linda covered her mouth. Tears forming, Mark continued. I want to earn who I become. Sergeant Cole nodded subtly. Judge Judy tapped her pen on the bench. Good, she said. Because I'm not interested in judging the boy who walked into this courtroom, and judging the man who stands in front of me now. Ms. Linda, Judge Judy called suddenly. Join us. Linda's eyes widened. She stood shaky but determined and walked to the front. Ms. Linda, Judy said, you've carried guilt for years. Tell me, do you still believe you failed your son? Linda wiped her cheeks. No, Your Honor, she said softly. I believe I was doing the best I could with the pain I had. Mark turned toward her, eyes glassy. And now? Judy pressed. Linda took her son's hand. Now I want to do better. Together. Judy nodded once, approving. Good, because guilt fixes nothing. Accountability and honesty fix everything. Asterisk Sergeant Cole, Judy said, step forward. He did, posture straight, expression stoic. You willingly offered to take Mr. Hall under your supervision. Why? Cole's voice was steady. Because I see potential in him. Raw potential. The kind the military can shape, if he's willing. Judy tilted her head. And you believe he is? I know he is, Cole answered. Not because he's perfect, but because he's willing to start imperfect. Judy smirked lightly, the closest she ever came to a smile. Well said. Asterisk Judge Judy stood. The room stiffened. Mr. Halley, she declared. You will not be going to jail. Linda let out a sob of relief, but Judy continued sharply. You will enter the military discipline rehabilitation program under Sergeant Cole's supervision. Mark nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. You will attend daily training sessions. You will follow orders. You will rebuild your character, not through shortcuts or stolen symbols, but through discipline, humility, and service. Judy leaned in. You will become the man your father never had the courage to be. Mark's breath trembled. Yes, Your Honor. And if you fail, she warned, every suspended charge will return and you will go to jail. Do you understand me? Yes, Your Honor, he repeated. Louder this time. Judy sat back. Good, because I don't give second chances to people who waste first ones. Asterisk Judge Judy closed the file. Mr. Halley, she said, before you leave my courtroom, you have one responsibility left. Mark braced himself. Judy pointed toward his mother. You owe her a promise. Mark turned to Linda, tears streaming. Mom, he whispered, voice cracking, I promise I will make you proud. Not by pretending, not by hiding, not by being someone else, but by becoming better. Every day. Linda's tears fell freely. I already am proud, Mark. He shook his head gently. I want to earn it. She pulled him into her arms. He held her tightly for the first time in years. Sergeant Cole cleared his throat. All right, kid. Time to begin. Mark wiped his tears and nodded. He took a step toward the exit, toward discipline, toward rebuilding, toward a new life. Judge Judy raised her gavel one last time. Case closed. Bang. Asterisk Mark stood on a training field at sunrise. Sweat rolling down his face, breath steady. Posture strong. He wasn't carrying a badge, he was earning one. Linda watched from a distance with pride shining in her eyes. Sergeant Cole stood beside her, arms crossed, smirking. Told you he had it in him, Cole said. Linda smiled softly. Yes. He just needed someone to show him how. Mark finished his set, wiped his face, and looked toward them. For the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing his father's shadow. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't lost. He was becoming the man he was meant to be. Asterisk.